Pedro Meloni, thanks so much for joining us. I got to ask, I'm very familiar with the incredible work you do. I'm a little bit biased because I see you in action a lot in a normal year. But
In a
for
normal
folks
year.
in a normal year, but for folks who might not be super familiar with your role at USA Weightlifting, give us a sense of what your normal responsibilities are. I know a lot has changed in 2020 with the pandemic for event organizers, but give us a sense of what you would normally do in a calendar year for events.
Yeah, what a year, right? So it's a great year to be an event organizer. It's not a lot of hurdles. So uh, just a quick one. I've never canceled an event in my life, and this year we're in number 4 already. So
Oh, and that broke a really impressive streak too.
yeah, right. Uh, so basically, my job at USA Weightlifting is making sure that we have a destination for our events. Roughly 18 months before that, and 18 to 12 months before that, and hosting the events, making sure that they run smoothly, that our sponsors are taken care of, and we are reaching what we need to reach in terms of the assets that we discuss with them and all this kind of stuff. So making sure that we look good to USA Weightlifting members and they have a pleasant time at the competition.
Now, one thing that I know I always wondered about actually before we started working together, before BarBend and USA Weightlifting started working together, and it might be something that people listening are wondering about, how does USA Weightlifting pick event sites? Because every time a new event site is announced on social media, I see so many people asking, like, when are you coming to XYZ city? Why don't you ever do it in this city? How does that actually happen?
So we have monthly talks to most of the destinations in the US. There is a marketplace, I should say, where we meet those destinations, the CVBs, the sports commissions, and they come to us and we come to them with deals and proposals on what we want to do and this and this and that. And we look for signing interesting deals, also considering that we're an NGB. Our job is not necessarily to make a lot of profit from events. We don't, of course, we don't want to be in the red, but so we want to rotate those events across the country. So that's why you see juniors on the West and then moving to the East and then a little bit of the Midwest. And so you're going to see this kind of movements, right? So there is this marketplace that we negotiate with destinations and all. As a matter of fact, there's one going on right now that was supposed to be in a huge marketplace, huge gathering in Kansas City that now moved completely online. So, and this week I'm actually talking to, I like to say that I'm speed dating with 50 different cities. So it's 10 minutes of conversation talking about what is USA Weightlifting, how many room nights we need, what's the kind of space that we need, and then so all those things are met before we sign a deal with the city.
So yeah, what are some of those factors that USA Weightlifting looks for specifically when picking a city? So what does the city need to have, or what would you like it to have?
So for us, David, and you know that weightlifting is fairly simple when it comes to specifics, right? We need a flat space, a big flat space, and we look for our events 40,000 square feet for the competition space in a concrete or a carpeted strong floor, right? 9 times out of 10, we look for a hotel that is attached to the venue because that makes things much easier for all of us. It's not all the time that we manage to get it, but that's what we look for. And of course, before signing the deal with the city, I will contact a local gym or a local USA Weightlifting club that agrees on being the host for that event and act as the event director. And that event director will basically help us with the bodies, with the volunteers that will help us running that event. So the process is we receive the deal from the city, we receive the package from the city with what they're offering and what's the hotel prices, what are the venue prices, and myriad of things. And then I'll reach out to the city, say, hey, David, I just got a call from New York City. They want to host nationals in New York. Do you have a club that is like, are you interested in this and this and that? And those are the requirements and in terms of bodies. And then we move the conversation from there.
Now, what are the cities getting from this? Like, what are they hoping that you bring?
So basically, they're looking for economic impact, right?
Okay.
I think, so last American Open Series 2, I think it generated, the one in Albuquerque, and that's the number that is freshest in my mind, generated an economical impact of $3 million to Albuquerque in that situation. So they're looking for that. They're looking for what they call in the industry, they're looking for heads in beds, right? So they're looking at people staying at their hotels, their city hotels. So there are people flying in, people who stay at the hotels, eating at their restaurants, people that wouldn't be normally there in that city, right? So that generates business for that city. So that's why they're eager to bring us. And again, as an NGB, 80% of our attendees are usually out-of-staters. So that is also very meaningful for the cities, because people are traveling, they're staying 3-4 days and generating business to the city, So that's an important part. That's why after every competition, we send our attendees, we send our participants a survey with like, how many nights did you stay? How much did you pay a day? How much money did you spend in a day with meals and all that? I understand that for a coach that goes like 10 times a year, 8 times a year to our events, that's probably a little bit boring, but it's a very important tool for us as well. It's all the time the same questions, so we have the correct metrics to help us negotiating with the cities in the future.
How does this process change when USA Weightlifting is hosting an international event? For example, one of the first events that I think we ever worked on together, or where we were kind of, in the same place for a long time, was, I believe, the 2017 Pan Ams, which were in South Florida. How does this process shift, and how does your role change when USA Weightlifting is hosting, be it a continental championship or even an international championship or a world championship of some sort?
Yeah, that changes dramatically, right? Let's pick it up from 2017, because we had Pan Ams and we had the World Championships, right, in Anaheim. So for the Pan Ams, we basically didn't have a lot of influence from South Miami or for Miami Beach, the CVB, right? They didn't play a very important role in that one. So it was us negotiating directly with the venue. That was the only venue that we could find that would meet the requirements of the Pan American Federation. And you remember that competition for the Pan Ams, it was nice. For the American Open Series 2, it was super tight, right?
Yeah. We
had to play a little bit of put a little bit of a miracle on that one to work, right? So that process changes like this, because it is an election that happens in the Pan Am Federation, that they receive the proposals from the national federations, and they vote on those proposals. So the U.S. was awarded that event in 2017, right? It brings its own challenges, for sure. But the part that stays the same is that we will then approach, and that in that occasion it was Team Soul with Danny. So we approached them and say, hey, can you guys help us run this event? Can you guys provide the bodies? And of course, they're a super important part of the organization. When I say they're providing the bodies, it may look like they're just like people there, but no, they're like important people that will help us running that event, right? Our core staff is very small. So they helped us out with that one. And just to in Anaheim was a little bit different, because Visit Anaheim was super involved in the whole process, and they helped us preparing the proposal that was going to the IWF. But same thing, the IWF would then vote, the executive board of the IWF will sit down and vote on the proposals that they receive. And I remember that initially Anaheim had lost it for youth words, and they lost it for North Korea, an event that ended up not happening. You remember that one. So you see that there's like youth words in Anaheim, Disneyland, or in North Korea, and so and the board voted at that occasion North Korea, and then of course we ended up hosting Words in Anaheim, 2017.
When it comes to these international events and you have athletes from all these different countries coming in, I'm curious specifically when it comes to the events that you have run in the United States, the international events, how involved are you and how involved is your team at USA Weightlifting as the event organizers or hosts? How involved are you with the visa application process for a lot of international athletes, especially from countries where it might not be super easy or accessible for their athletes and their coaches and their teams to even get to the United States in the first place? Yeah,
that's a big part of it. Usually, and thankfully, the one that takes the lead on that one, that's Phil. So Phil has a contact. Yeah, Phil Andrews has a contact with the USOPC and the person that pushes the department that pushes all that information through the consulates and all that. That is a process that lasts. We start sending emails like an year out and more than that. And unfortunately, many times what happens is that people just wait too long before they start acting, right? They're informed in advance, and what ends up happening is that us pushing our partners at the USOPC and consulates and embassies, asking them, please process this request as soon as you can, because either people, they never apply and they say, well, it's just too difficult, or they simply take forever to do it. So that is a huge thing. We're fortunate that in Anaheim and during the Pan Ams, we reached 100% of the ones that applied, and we managed to get them into the country, right? Of course, not without hurdles, not without hassle. I remember that for the Iranian team, if you remember in 2017, they were like, are they coming, are they not? And finally they made it, so that was good. But yeah, so it's increasingly difficult, and that's one of the reasons that we stepped back a little bit from hosting international events, especially world events. Well, we will do it in 2020, but now, of course, we won't because of obvious reasons.
Well, I want to go back in time a little bit. I want to talk about the 2016 Rio Olympics, where you played a vital role. You were the man when it came to organizing weightlifting, and also it's important to note powerlifting at the Paralympic Games, which occurred after the Olympic Games. And I got to give a special shout out because, and this is a disclosure, BarBend is not only the official media partner of USA Weightlifting, we also work very closely with World Para Powerlifting, so I get to pick your brain on both ends. That is so incredibly massive. You organized weightlifting and powerlifting at the Olympic and Paralympic Games.
That's right.
How did you come into that role? How did that land on your desk? Because if someone presented that to me, Pedro, we're different people, I'd probably run for the hills. It's just such an undertaking.
Man, it was a fun one, to be honest. It was good. It was good. It was a nice 4-year period getting to that point. And today, I think it's day -1 to, it was supposed to be day -1 to Tokyo, right? So I can only imagine what my colleagues are passing in Tokyo right now when they're supposed to start competitions tomorrow or after tomorrow. We're recording just on August 4th, right? So it's interesting. It was pretty cool in Rio as well. So what happens is that I was working in a university in Brazil teaching, and we had this national training center that was a weightlifting training center there that was working with them for the past 3 to 4 years. in an admin role too. And I did a little bit of coaching with athletes that ended up getting, including a medal at the Pan Ams in 2015, silver medal in the Pan Ams 2015. But I remember, I think it was before London. I think it was December 2011. The Rio 2016 organizing committee just opened the spots to sport managers from all disciplines, and I said, well, I'll apply and then see what happens. And then after like a 6 months process leading to London, then I finally got the position and flew to London, and I managed to like do some observation programs in London, and that led to Rio. But working with the weightlifting guys and powerlifting guys was a real pleasure. They were like very competent people, and that made it super easy.
Pedro, I really appreciate your time and for joining us on the BarBend podcast and for giving insight into the world of organizing weightlifting events. It's something that I, for too long, took for granted, and I think a lot of spectators take for granted the challenges you face. I was going to say kind of behind the curtain, but you're not necessarily behind the curtain. You're running everywhere all at once. Where's the best place for people to keep up to date with the work you're doing and events, be they in person or virtual, coming up on USA Weightlifting's calendar?
So reach out to USA Weightlifting's website, the event section over there. We always keep our calendar updated with news on where we're going next, what are the next cities that will host the USA Weightlifting future events, and USA Weightlifting's social media as well. So keep an eye on that one.
Awesome. Well, Pedro, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Appreciate it.